the lecture here what I will be giving is more on a field related aspects, but not on the Siemens products. Though I am representing Siemens, but here I am representing here as an AIA member. And we have started this initiative. Mr. Vada must have talked to you earlier, 1 or 2 days back. This initiative is basically to bring the industry requirement to known by the colleges what industry is needing. How basically we are expecting a student when it comes from the college, what industry is expecting. So that type of inputs we are suggesting to the college so that they can implement in their course, either in an optional way or in a curriculum, whichever is feasible. So in that aspect, everybody, all the members have picked up certain areas and they are delivering the information on the respective parts. So my part here is PLC as well as the networking of those components and then bringing it to the SCADA. So I will be basically giving you the information from top down, but I will start speaking from bottoms up because I have to start with sensors around. So the automation per se, it is started in 80s. If you see the PLCs and other stuff started in 80s, but in India little came very late, maybe 90s. People started PLC and we had to really struggle to explain or convince customers the need of automation. Now this is not the case today, but earlier this was the case where we need to explain why automation is required, how the process, the manufacturing things can be improved. So these are the standard points where improved quality, faster production, increased flexibility were the standard lines we used to use in earlier days. But now this is not the scenario. The scenario is little bit different. Everybody knows now automation, why automation is required, and okay, people want everything to be automated as far as possible. But this is not the end of automation. Now, once the automation is there in the plant for any manufacturing setup, and because the IT also improved a lot and coming down from top to industry level or a field level, the wish, the requirement from the customer's point of view has got increased a lot. They do not just want automations per se that if I am pressing a button from 20 meters away the motor should start. This is a simple automation anybody can do nowadays. Even a college guy can also do it. But they do not want only that much. That automation is not only the expectation of them. Their expectation is get all that relevant information to a central place, maybe in the same plant or maybe somewhere in the world also, so that they can analyze it. Because then they can even distribute the load of the manufacturing, load of the components or load of their production to various plants, even integrate their incoming inventory part to manufacture, properly manufacture it, then keep it into their stock or sell it to the seller. So all those things to be automated in a seamless way. That is what they are wanting. And for that matter, practically it is difficult to really get a common platform, because there are n number of suppliers for n number of machines, n number of such process part. So it is practically impossible to get a really a common understandable protocol or a part through which you can really seamlessly transfer the input level up to the output level. So the integration of that is also very critical part of it. So this is what we will be showing you in our lab also after this session, that even if there are 4 different manufacturers, they are expertise in their own products, but when it comes to actually implementation in the plant, how this can be components can be integrated and really get a proper production output. So the need from automation is now increased a lot and people are expecting more and more, only that not only automation of the machine, but getting the data of that machine to a central level to improve more production time and cost. So this is achieved either by integrating horizontally, that is you can integrate certain machines, like you imagine maybe car manufacturing plant where the individual components are manufactured at individual places, like example the engines are manufactured at in engine paint shop is painted, the body is painted in a paint shop. So there are various plants, but when all these machines come to a one place where they are actually assembling it. For assembling there are n number of tasks done, because first they get the machine, then they get the chassis, then they get the tires, they get the other mechanicals and other electrical parts, and they finally on the last end of the conveyor you get a completely built motor or a car. So, in that assembly line there are various manufacturers, so they have their various expertise. Somewhere there will be robots, somewhere there will be some safety machines, somewhere there will be a welding machines. So, they have their own expertise in the machine design, but when it is actually connected, because it is ultimately making a one component car, all those machines should talk to each other seamlessly, and this is nothing but a horizontal integration. This is something people are expecting. I know in when I used to go to Mahindra's in late 90s, 95, 96, 97, they are still manufacturing Jeep and tractors, but earlier they were having individual machines, and if one operator is making the machine and he just make the component the way it was told to him, he is not bothered whether these components are getting manufactured more or less. The other machine can be idle, other machine can be requesting more number of components. So, they used to find that some machines are manufacturing because of the efficiency of a machine or operator, some components are manufactured more and some components are not. It is something like, suppose you are manufacturing shoes, only left shoe is manufactured more, you cannot sell it unless and until you have right and left both pair is ready, you cannot sell it. So, in that way they used to have huge inventory, but selling point of view 0. They used to sell very less number of car only because the whole car is not ready, the whole components were not ready. Then later on one Japanese, they started a joint venture with Japanese, and the first thing what they did is they connected all those machines. So, that means the output of a machine is input to the next machine. So, now every operator has to work not as per his own satisfaction or discretion, he has to always operate what I am getting out I have to give. So, it is a sequential, this is nothing but a horizontal integration. So, this is something required so that you will not miss on the time and you will not unnecessarily manufacture the more number of components. So, this is something horizontal integration is really required, and this is what people are looking for. So, nowadays the older plants they do this in a little bit different way because the things are already there. In a newer plants they immediately think I want everything to be integrated, whichever is the OEM, whichever is the manufacturer, I want the machine to be talking to another machine seamlessly, and this is the big requirement. Second is vertical integration, this is also main part, only because if I know I have an order of making, say example, I have 10 car orders from the field that I have to manufacture 10 cars. Accordingly, that information should go up to the field level to the machines as well as to my inventory people, the stock people, that they have to get the hardware or the loose material or the spares or raw material accordingly from the market, so that they can produce 10 number of cars in time. So, that is called as the just in time. This is the one more terminology used more in the automotive, that they will not keep the stock too much, but they just keep the stock the way it is required. So, that integration from coming upside, that I have 10 number orders for 10 cars, then I will start manufacturing 10 cars like this. Or even if something is not in shape, see example, I have an order of 10 cars, but my raw material is not enough for 10, immediately that information will go to my higher authority who is making the purchase order to the vendor. So, this is a vertical integration, immediately I should be able to generate a purchase order without any hassle, so that I get the material just in time, and this is a vertical integration people are looking for. So, horizontal and vertical, when you really get both things are integrated, then you really get a proper output. So, this is the crux of nowadays automation. People are not only looking that my machine is working, the way I put a button, machine start bana raha component. This is not only the need of automation. Automation per se, it's nowadays little bit more umbrella, where everything is connected seamlessly, but finally I get the output. People and the end user is least bother whether I am getting a product from Siemens or some other company or some other OEM and I am getting this technology, they are least bother. They want my component should be manufactured the way I want at this price, so that I can sell it into the market. So, if you are giving this technology, everybody will jump on it. So, how the PLC and SCADA can help you for this? So, PLC and SCADA can help to really do this seamless integration, otherwise horizontally and vertically. The PLCs can talk to each other on a various protocol that we will see later, and the SCADA can talk to the ERPs. So, SCADA talk to ERP, get the information from ERPs to the machines, so that individual machine can manufacture the way they want to, and then PLC can give a command to other machines also, okay, I am ready, what my component is ready, you now make your own component, whatever. So, it depends on the application to application. But not only that, the one composition, say example multiple PLCs over and above one SCADA can really give you a better returns also at a later stage, because then you are keeping the same, but when you are improvising the production, you really get the best rate of return. Moreover, by using this, all the manufacturers nowadays giving lot of error diagnostic information readily available either on their controller or on the software side. So, the downtime can be as minimal as possible. So, otherwise earlier if you see the relay logic, what we used to do in 80s, late 80s or something, the relay logic, if there is some wire is loose, the relay will used to chatter, or if it is disconnected, then to finding out which relay is not now functioning can take a lot of time, because there are huge relay panel maybe, and to find out only one relay who is not functioning properly, maybe a day, 2, depends on the complexity. Here a fellow will directly tell this channel is not working, this wire is failed, this channel is failed, even my sensing part is above the limit. If I am measuring 0 to 10 and my limit for this application is say 8 volts, it will immediately say your setting is 8 volt, but I am getting 9 volts, it is over limit, that means go and check the sensor. So, all such diagnostics is readily available either on a text format, LED format, maybe on a big screens, wherever is depends on the again applications, but then you do not even need the expertise, the operator himself will know, अरे ये तो ज़्यादा जा रहा है, the level is more, he can just reduce either the pressure level, whatever, he can do the requisite, or he can call a expert guy from maintenance. So, downtime is minimal, the downtime is minimal means indirectly you are getting the production high and then the cost. So, when you do this vertical integration and horizontal integration, you can imagine a plant like this, where all such PLCs are connected, controllers, SCADAs, even to SCADA, and then SCADA can connect it to the MES level, and from this MES level one can even reach up to this device also seamlessly, without seeing whether this is another protocol, this is another protocol, this is another protocol, this is another protocol. For the end user it is transparent, he can still go up to the field level, diagnose also, or can get the production the way he want. So, this is basically a typical integrated architecture. Okay, we are not able to show you this type of architecture in our lab as of today, but this is basically what the industry is needing it. What I also came from the same area of the college, where we used to learn theoretical part very much, but we really were missing of understanding the application part of it, how this can be otherwise implemented in the plant, and this is something is missing what industry is needing. The engineer knows theoretically very well, but to get it implemented takes little bit more time, and then every company has to invest, and that investment is nothing but cost to a company, and if that is minimized, then it is directly a fayda to company. So, this is what we are looking for.
The Profibus is the standard universal bus on which I can connect any manufacturer's PLC.
Yes, I will tell you, but you are right. So, to give you a brief about PLC SCADA network, as I told you, though I am talking a top down approach from SCADA, but I will start from bottoms up. So, first we will check how the things can be picked up from field level to PLC and then from PLC to the SCADA. So, first level is a distributed periphery, that means this is a field area we always called as a periphery, that is connected on the field, all the sensors, actuators, on off command, push buttons, everything whatever is there, these are all connected over a distributed periphery. The conventional way is like this, all these sensors are connected by hardwired, and there is a limitation always. You cannot imagine a thermocouple signal coming from 1 kilometer away, it is practically impossible. Without directly, if you are laying down a cable of 1 kilometer and you want to fetch a data from thermocouple, the signal will die down after 20, 50, 100 meters. So, it will never reach. So, the problem for this is, okay, you can still have a thermocouple sensor and then nearby a small machine, yes, it is possible, but you cannot imagine a huge plant like your, say example, if you visited the Reliance petrochemical plant in Jamnagar, it is huge, it is 8 kilometer by 8 kilometer plant, it is very huge. The signal which is coming from your fire alarm station stationed at central gate at the entry point can go up to their jetty also, which is 3 kilometers away from the entry point. So, such type of signals, if you want to fetch, even if it is a digital signal, laying down a 3 kilometer cable is a very huge cost, and maintaining of it this is also huge cost, because 32 core cable, you imagine 3 kilometer 32 core cable, if one core is down, who will and how they will find, and then changing of that cable just to get that one signal is at a cost. So, initially people used to reluctant to understand the advantage of this type of architecture, I will tell you what is this, but then when they came to know, okay, to lay down a huge cable and then maintaining it, it is a cost, though right now this cable is maybe 2 times 3 times costlier than this standard cable, but at a long run, if I want to really use this plant for 10, 20, 50 years, then this is not the correct solution. So, this was a conventional way. Now, this way is something like Profibus and Profinet, which I was telling you, that you can get the local signals locally, which is the limit. Say example, thermocouple 50, 100 meters signal is okay. So, in nearby area get the signals into one particular device, but then the technology called Profibus, Profinet, some other protocols also, they can really send this data only on 2 wires, and this 2 wire can go up to 100 kilometer also with the fiber optic. With electrically right now this can go up to 10 kilometers, but with fiber optic it can go up to 100 kilometers. So, imagine now we can really then build up a huge plants, and this is what people are doing it. People are expanding their plants using such technology. Just one example before I just go ahead, this is something a conventional way, and all these wires are connected, but you use this technology called distributed periphery, then only one cable and this signal is connected. So, imagine this cable gives you diagnostic information also, and even if only one cable is cut, you can easily change it, but these cables are industrial grade cable, they are much more rugged than 32 standard cable, 32 core standard cable. So, this was basically a earlier scenario where people used to use a conventional way, and the control room will be like this, very huge control room. You imagine इस control room को control करना है control room से, then operator has to either run always from here to there, or they have to keep multiple operators, right now, because it is very huge. This is a actual photo of a power plant, but very old power plant. By using a different technology, it can come down to something like this, only one operator. Even the control station can also be distributed, keeping a server at one place and then give the client machines at various places. So, central level controlling as well as the local level controlling can be done very easily by using this technology, like distributed the load on a field level, but control will be at a central place. Okay. So, this is acquiring all the field related data, but to really get the data, you know, I just told you this is all possible, but to get the data you definitely require protocols, because here I am not only getting the hardware signal, because the 2-wire signal will run through example on RJ45 or on RS485. So, it is only electrical signal, but to decode I need some protocol that this signal is coming from this device and this device has DIDO module, AIO module, or this module is a transmitter module, or this is a thermocouple signal. This decoding is done in the protocols. So, there are various protocols available in the industry. Profibus, Profinet is some of the protocols which I know, but there are other protocols also. Profibus is the highest used protocol in the industry. There are around 50 million nodes installed as of today, which is the number one. The nearest node as compared to this is Interbus, which is around 28 million nodes. So, the highest is Profibus as of today, but people want, as I told you, people want now seamless integration from top to the field. So, Ethernet can be a good solution for this. So, people nowadays want more and more Profinet like Ethernet to be incorporated from field level up to the ERP. So, Profinet is another protocol which works on a Ethernet, that is it follows IEEE standard, but it can carry the field level signals and it can be used to control also. Okay. The difference between simple Ethernet and Profinet is the simple Ethernet standard TCP/IP works on a CSMA/CD principle. I will not go into the details of CSMA/CD, but the problem I will explain. You imagine you are sending an email to your colleague, maybe 2 colleagues. One colleague is just sitting behind you, another colleague is somewhere sitting in US. He may get the email faster and your other colleague may get the email later. It happens. There is no control by the user or by anybody, because it is on the network and network is managing the traffic. Even if sometimes you lose the data, the email does not go itself, then you have to refire, send. Sometimes you lose the connection from your network, अरे मेरा network लग ही नहीं रहा है plant पे, you have to remove the cable, put it again, then the LED starts flashing, अरे now everything is connected. This is acceptable, but in the plant you imagine if there is a emergency signal and somebody has pressed the emergency and कुछ नहीं हुआ, nothing has stopped, nobody will accept it, and that is why simple Ethernet, simple TCP/IP cannot be used in the plant, in the field level. They are used up to the SCADA, but below SCADA TCP/IP is not used. That was a problem, but otherwise barring this problem, the Ethernet is the best solution for building up a huge network, huge plants across the globe, because otherwise you can take all the advantage of Ethernet, LAN, WAN, MAN structure, you can send the huge packets, you can get the lot of information at one place, or you can build up various servers at various levels and then fetch all the data from various servers. Like Google has lot of servers, they do not have only one server at one place, they have lot of servers at other different places. So, even if one server is down, they can still get the data from other servers. So, like this all those advantages are there, but then why not to get those advantages in the plant? This was the need, and in 2005, 2004, 2005 lot of companies started coming in the Ethernet area also. So, Profibus International is an organization built by 1400 companies, they brought Profinet into the market, and now by using Profinet you can imagine on Ethernet everything and realize also you can really use it, we are using it. If we press an emergency, it will act like the way it is connected as a wire and it will behave the way it is expected 100%. So, even if you are using TCP/IP Ethernet platform, its behavior is guaranteed. So, the Profinet is very fast catching up, and at a later stage you will find everywhere it is Ethernet, there is no protocol change for field, for controller and for SCADA. Other than that, we have Modbus TCP, we have OPCs, we have other protocol like EtherCAT, we have other protocol like EtherLink. There are various protocols available which works on Ethernet and also gives you the same performance. Then comes Profibus, which is discussed a little bit earlier. Profibus is works on RS-485 and it has got all the advantage which I have discussed with you for Ethernet. The only problem is you cannot imagine a very huge network. As I told you, maximum it can go up to 100 kilometer with FO, maximum. Ethernet can go worldwide, you know, there is no limitation because you can build a LAN, WAN, MAN structure and you can really go worldwide. With Profibus you can't imagine that. So, this was some limitation. Another limitation of Profibus was the data handling capacity. You cannot imagine a huge data handling, you cannot send packets and packets and packets together, there is a limitation. And then lesser number of nodes, but as of today still in the industry other than the big plants, the medium plants, the lower level plants or the lower size capacity plants, they are still okay with Profibus, and that is why as I told you the Profibus number of nodes worldwide, they are still the highest. So, people are still going because Profibus otherwise tried and tested technology, it came in 95, late 95 and it is tried and tested, working in industry from last 20 years, very proven technology. On this you can have various controllers, it works, it can be connected over SCADA, the IOs. Then there are other devices also which he was asking to me, the transmitters, the power meters, even the RFID sensors or the vision sensor cameras, anything, whichever is device is possible. If it is Profibus enabled, you can connect to any other Profibus controller. There is no need of checking whether the manufacturer of this part is of Siemens and this is also of Siemens, then only they can talk to each other. No, if they say I am a Profibus enabled device or Profinet enabled device, I can talk to some other controller who is also Profibus or Profinet. This is exactly what we are showing in our lab also. My controller is working on Profinet, but it talks to PNF sensor or RFID reader on Profinet. So, it is completely two different entities, but they can talk to each other. Other than that, there are point to point communications are always available and they are used into the industry for some local value reading and putting it into the controllers. These are some standard protocol like Modbus RTUs, serial protocol, the ASCII values, which are generally used for, especially this ASCII and Modbus. Modbus is generally used on the remote areas where ASCII is more used on the printing part, you know, because if you, especially in the pharma or F&B sections where they want to print the label, the batches and other details to just put it on a packaging line and then send the components to the market. So, all those protocols are always available, these are all very conventional way. Wireless is not the conventional way, that is why I kept it last. Wireless is something a new need, and it is not something to replace the wire, you know, wireless technology is not to replace the wire. You cannot imagine a plant or a machine without wire, it is not possible, okay. There are always limitation, but wireless technology is used in two way. One is for the longer distance where real time communication is not expected. The way I told you, if you are sending an email, you are not bothered whether the email reaches within 2 minutes or 5 minutes, okay. It should reach, that is all. But so in such scenario you can use GPRS, GSM technology, just fire the signal and then SMS will go, jab bhi jana hai jana hai. And another is called data communication, which requires a real time communication. That is example I give you, the emergency. If you press an emergency at 100% of time, the machine should stop because it is an emergency. So, those signals can also be transferred wirelessly but then it has got a limitation because it cannot be sent for the larger distances, it can go up to lower distances. So, these wireless applications are used in within the premises, within the plant with a distance of maybe 1 or 2 kilometers. But then why this is used? This is a question, maybe you may get, or it can be clicked in your mind. If this is the problem, only 1 kilometer is the distance, and why I should use wireless? I can just lay down a cable and forget. Okay. This is anyway conventional solution, people are using it in the plant. But the important is, and the advantage of wireless is, example, if I am, if you have seen a crane or overhead monorails, the power and the data also transferred along with the crane, otherwise it cannot work. And then to maintain that, because there are motors with carbon brush arrangement, and after 15, 20 or a month, depends on the load on the motor, that carbon deposition is heavy. So, they lose the contact. You imagine if one crane is lifting a huge mass and there is no proper contact because of some carbon deposition, it may fail down. And if such scenario comes, company has to take a shutdown, open the motor, clean it. It takes, depends on the size of the motor, takes maybe a one shift or a complete 1 day or a week. It is a loss to the company, unnecessary, and they have to do it. There is no alternative. This is the conventional way. People are using it, still using it because there was no solution. Now there is a solution, wireless. For such applications, you can have standard motors without this carbon brush arrangement, standard motors, standard induction motors, and then transfer the data wirelessly. So, such shutdowns can be reduced drastically, and then when you are reducing the shutdowns, that means you are improving your production. So, keeping the same facility, keeping the same machine, today if you are manufacturing 10 components with the same thing, if you are not wasting a 1 week and a month just for the shutdown, that means 1 week is production time, you are increased. So, 10%, 20%, 30% is straight away increase. So, this is the technology which people are using it and they are wanting it. Another point in wireless is, people also want nowadays a mail triggered or a SMS triggered from the network itself or the CPU itself if I am down. So, that OEM is suppose sending a machine to a plant where he has given you the latest technology, but the people are not so known about the latest technology. So, what they can give a sort of a email or a GSM technology along with the machine, so that if there is a problem, they immediately get a information, even without calling by that OEM or a end user. So, this type of technology is also available. People can just get the email or SMS, my machine is down because of XYZ error, things are pre-configured, with the pre-configured numbers, the SMS can go directly. This is practically we are doing it maybe 5 to 6 years back to Delhi Municipal Corporation, all the pumping lines and the water distribution lines are operated via this GSM technology at exact times. At example, at 8 o'clock RK Puram water distribution will start, at 9 o'clock some other will start, at 10 o'clock some other will start, and if that does not start at that point of time, then the SMS goes to the water pumping station. So, this is all already done practically. It is not only a technology which I am showing on a paper, this is realized technology, we are using it, we have done this, and this is what people are wanting it. Okay, then this is upload download. Other than that, there are network components also which can be used to diagnose all those network information, and the moment you are saying everything is on the network, it has to be protected, otherwise lot of virus can come to the plant. So, the security switches which allows authentic interaction with the plant, then the wireless switches and the Ethernet switches can give you a connection over the Ethernet nowadays to the plant, to the various machines. So, this is what a real component which is used either horizontal integration or in the vertical integration. So, within the horizontal integration, more or less the electrical switches are used, because they are talking to work X machine to another machine or another machine to third machine, and while integration in vertical integration, operator should not go to the ERP, you know, if he has that connection known, he can just log into ERP and can screw the ERP data also. So, this should not happen. So, there they can filter the entry level by using the Ethernet switches or security switches. So, there can be a authentic user with password protection, then only when the user is entered properly the things at the username, the password, everything, and then he can enter into this. So, these components are really important for your horizontal and vertical integration. Okay. Then we come to, so after field level and then the connecting this field level to the controller, we come to the controller and then the selection criteria for this controller. There are three main points, 3 or 4 main points which should be considered while selecting a type of the PLC. The first and foremost is the IO handling, how many IOs you want to connect to a controller to control, it depends on the application. In some applications, example as I told you, in water distribution there is a small tank, you must have seen the small tanks in the cities. So, there are few IOs, level sensors, 2-3 level sensors, some 4-5 IOs. So, only few IOs are there. So, only small PLC, we call this as a micro PLC is enough. But if I want to control a big assembly line of a automotive plant, then the IOs can be thousands. So, 1000 IOs, 2000 IOs, 4000 IOs. Then the CPU has to be different. Okay. So, it is something like your core 1, core 2, core 3 CPU or maybe i3, i5, i7 CPU, depends on the load you select which type of CPU is there, but it is more related to IO handling, how many IOs you want to control, based on that the CPU selected. The moment I say, suppose I want to handle 5000 number of IOs, then accordingly that CPU should have a memory. Example, if I am using a server machine, I cannot imagine a 1 GB RAM, right. When I am using a Windows 2008 machine and I want server to be installed and work as a server, at least I need 8 GB RAM. So, this is something like if I am using 10 IOs, then micro PLC is okay, 10 KB memory is okay for me, but if I am using 5000, then I cannot imagine a 10 KB IOs. So, depends on that, it is always correlation. Other than that, third part comes, then the level comes networking, where I want to communicate only to the IOs and keep my controller as a black box, or I also want to give the data to ERP. Then there are various protocols available, based on that which CPU or which type of protocol is to be selected can be decided. So, there are 3 main level on which the PLCs can be selected. Okay. And the fourth part is depend on the type of the application, which type of application you are using, because there are certain applications for which the controllers are designed. So, example, for motion control applications, it is more faster. Na? Motion controllers are very fast because they want fast response, they work in microsecond, they work in nanosecond. So, their update time, their processing time of the instruction is also in nanoseconds or in microseconds. So, that response is not expected to a process automation, where I am doing a rolling mill, if I am doing a batch control or something, the batch itself may work for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, then I am just monitoring the batch, there is no fast operation is expected, but this process automation will work 24/7. So, the controller should be capable of working 24/7, there is no stoppage, not even a single time the CPU is in stop condition or a power off condition. So, there the requirement is fast response is not required, but the consistency is required for this, but here fast operation is very required, very fast. So, depends on the type of the application, we select the type of the controller also. Another operation is hot standby. This is the need of any big plants, where if they want to keep their plant 24/7 working, then they choose hot standby CPU. That means, if there is a stoppage of or error in the one CPU, the other CPU is ready to take over without even knowing the field area that CPU is changed or the my master is changed. The field area does not even know, there is no bump on the field side. there is no chattering or there is no change in the output side. The output जो on है on ही रहेगा, off है तो off ही रहेंगे. There is no change, even if the CPU changes, and that is called as a hot standby. Now, how this is taken care? The hot standby is something like this. There are two CPUs and they talk to each other, and that is why in terminology point of view it is not master slave. In terminology what we say, this is master, but this is not slave, this is standby. That means he is also equally master, ready to take over any time. So, that means the moment this fellow fails, this know where at what time this fellow failed, from that point I am taking over. I am not again starting from the scratch. All the values which are there inside that CPU is known to this CPU also. So, it is in ready to take over condition, and from that point it takes over. So, this is required in especially in the process plant, as I told you, because they want 24/7 working, always my plant should be on, and it is not possible or it is very costly if the plant is down even for a minute, because if the plant is down for a minute they may have to throw the batch, they may have to start the batch from 0, lot of things are related to that, and it is a cost to the company. So, they are going for hot standby system wherein on the field side there is no jerk, bump is even known even if the master changes from A to B. And how this is achieved? This is achieved by the synchronization between these. There are different ways, depend on what type of and how the hot standby functionality is to be built up. Sometimes it is okay just to have a changeover of the CPU without even manual intervention of the controller. That means, once controller fail, other will take over, even if there is a bump on the output side, it is acceptable to the customer. Then you can have just a similar program and then changeover. The changeover will be automatic, there is no manual intervention, there is nobody is changing from this cable to this cable. There can be a time synchronization where CPU will always try to synchronize to the other controller on a timely basis, maybe at every 10 millisecond, 20 millisecond, 30 millisecond, but there is within that 10, 20 millisecond there is always a difference between the two CPUs, there is always a difference. So, in that time if something fails, then there are chances that you may get a bump on the output side, depends on the at what level, at what time that CPU has failed. So, it is not 100% guaranteed bumpless transition, but sometime it is acceptable, and this is something event based synchronization which is guaranteed. At any point whatever is event is generated, at that point of time the other CPU is synchronized, it checks where are you, whether you are at the same level where I am. If no, you come here, you first come to my level, we are synchronized, then I will go ahead, and that synchronization is done by the firmware. The user need not to write their code, it is there, all these manufacturers give this, it is now it is there in the firmware, but this will give you really a hot standby function. And that is why when we say it is hot standby system, it is guaranteed that even if there is a change of the master, there is no bump seen on the outside in the field area. So, after this we come to a SCADA level finally, from top to now bottom to top. The SCADA level is basically full blown, a big guy, I would say a very big guy who can see inside the plant at machine level, at a component level, it can be, depends on how you configure it. But generally nowadays what people want, that they really want to see up to the sensor, and if possible configure the sensor also, because sometimes they configure the level of the setting of the sensor or parameterization of the sensor, that should be also possible by sitting in the control room. So, this is basically a need and people are now giving it. So, that SCADA can not only see the simple statuses of the machine, but you can also go and configure the sensors also up to the sensors. So, I always say it is a big guy who can see inside the plant, and then as well as it can go to the top and give the information and take the information.
Through SCADA we cannot actually rectify the fault, can we?
Yeah. See, it depends again. If I this marketing statement is yes, but technical and correct statement is up to certain level yes, depends on type of the fault. If there is a really a cable cut, you cannot rectify from the SCADA. No, I am just telling you. So, any fault which can be, so I want to suppose bypass something, then I can have a configured station like, and then I can bypass. So, this is just click on this, then this input is bypassed and other input is in line. So, depends on the type of the fault, I can still take care, but there are certain faults which cannot be taken care. So, exactly. So, as I told you, marketing yes, technically up to certain extent yes, it is possible. So, as I told you, the moment people say SCADA, they also want distributed control of this SCADA given to the operators. So, imagine as I told you a big refinery where lot of gas cracker plant, and then after gas crackers there are various levels of cracked gas is manufactured. Somewhere it is kerosene, somewhere it is LAB, somewhere it is diesel. Then they are distinct plants, So, one is gas cracker. After this gas cracker there are various distinct plants which make their own product, they sell it to the market, ethane, methane, whatever, ethylene, they prepare their. So, that ethylene plant can be one plant, but it is attached to the gas cracker. If the gas cracker is down, everything is down. So, they will not get that material, raw material from them. So, generally what happens is the main servers are there and only the client part is given to respective areas. So, my area is ethylene, I am only manufacturing ethylene. So, okay, I will only see what is going on for ethylene area, but gas cracker person will know what the person is doing in ethylene, what the person is doing in kerosene, what the other doing is in other section. So, this type of architecture can be built, server client architectures, and this is the advantage of Ethernet. This is what Ethernet can give you. The server client architecture which we see in our office premises, same can be implemented in the plant area also. So, server client architecture can be realized. One another advantage of the SCADA is, so the operational part of it, then distribution of the operation to the different level is possible. Third important part is archiving of the information. This is very important and especially mandatory for pharma and F&B, at least pharma in India now it is becoming more and more mandatory. They have to keep the track of the batch which is manufactured, which is sent to the market. If something goes wrong, they should be in a position to backtrack all the ingredients which has gone into that simple small pill. Imagine, suppose you are buying a Anacin which is a regular product of a company, but if something goes wrong into the Anacin, if you give the strip, I have taken this Anacin pill from this strip, they should be able to backtrack when this was manufactured from this particular batch, who was the vendor who supplied me the raw material, when, whether there is a problem in a batch or a raw material or what. This is mandatory. Unless and until that is called as a FDA compliance, Food and Drug Association compliance, and it is comes under CFR Part 11. If anybody wants to sell the product in US, especially the pharma products, they must be compliant with CFR Part 11, otherwise they cannot sell, and this was the big case going on against Ranbaxy earlier. But nowadays whosoever wants to sell their product in US, at least in US market, they have to be compliant, and this is all possible if you are able to hold your whole production data for a time period which is otherwise expected in FDA Part 11. So, archiving is very important part nowadays becoming, and that is why people are now keeping archiving server as a different server, because they need more and more space. 1 TB, 4 TB, 5 TB space is only for the archiving. Operational part is in MBs, the application part is in MBs, but the archiving can go up to 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 1 year. After doing the archiving, then they do the analysis, either like this, the way I give you one example, but otherwise even if you want to monitor the overall equipment efficiency, that is called as OEE, how my machine is working, whether my machine is giving proper output or not, how many times the machine was down, how much time the machine was up. everything can be analyzed, make the reports, provided we have the data. So, that data is archived. So, that data comes first from the various controllers to the SCADA, then SCADA gives either it can, if it is a smaller data, the SCADA itself can save in its own application. If the data is very huge, then you can transfer that data only to the archiving server, which is connected to the SCADA. So, as and when required, if when I want to fire a report or if I want to see a trend, I can just fetch the data from the archiving server and then fire a report. So, this is possible in SCADA. Another SCADA requirement nowadays is people also want web connectivity, like I am sitting in Mumbai and I want to monitor my plant which is in Haryana suppose. It is otherwise impossible if there is no Ethernet to monitor remotely. But if I want to know and then plan my other activities, suppose the head office is in Mumbai and then plant is in Haryana, but if they want to really start this type of X type of manufacturing product or Y or Z or whatever, they can only plan once they know what is going on in the plant, how much is the raw material, what is my orders. For that they need not to go to the plant, they can just get connected over standard Internet Explorer, get the statuses, whether how much is my plant consumption, how my plant is working, whether it is efficiencies XYZ or not. All those parameters can be monitored through web. This is basically a typical otherwise GUI which is given by all the manufacturers of a SCADA. You get trend, you get some pictures, graphics, alarm views, and trend views, everything is configured. The moment you click on this, you get a faceplate. It is made it very simpler, it is not very rocket science. It was just made very simple so that an operator can get some intuitive command. After this, what I have to do? Example, nowadays when you buy a smartphone, you never even get a proper manual how to operate a smartphone. Have you seen? When you buy a smartphone, there is no proper manual, but when nobody teaches you also, with a smartphone itself will give you some indication that after this I have to press this button, then my function will work. This is something like an intuitiveness, So, that intuitiveness is basically crux of a SCADA system. The operator will feel very comfortable if he gets those pop-up signals very intuitively. इसके बाद में इसको ये दबाना, इसके बाद ये दबाना, then I get this function done. So, these are all part of the application which a vendor who supplies the SCADA will do, and nothing to do with the package as such. So, this is basically everybody gives this, and you get alarms, you get messages, you get trends, you get graphics, everything is readily available. And this is also one of the point where, as I told you, SCADA is generally seen as a umbrella, a big guy where he can monitor and control various controllers. So, SCADA should have all this type of connectivity, You cannot imagine that if, say example, if I am supplying a SCADA, I cannot imagine the plant will have 100% Siemens hardware. It is beyond impossible nowadays. Even if you see our own factory, still there is no 100% Siemens hardware. There are certain things which comes by default by the OEM and we have to accept it. So, for such thing there are various channels readily available, we call it as a native driver. That means you need not to write a special code for this, you can directly just connect the cable, configure their own channels called as native drivers and then start fetching the data. So, even if there are various other controllers in the plant, no worries, get the data and then finally make a picture which is useful to the user. On the background from where the data is fetching is not related, not interested, operator is not interested. Operator is interested what is actually coming and how I can use that data, that is all. How it is coming, it is immaterial, but for that matter the SCADA will have all such interfaces available, so that you need not to write indirectly the codes behind it to fetch the data from the various controllers. And this is something diagnostic information this which you are asking me. this is one of the advantage of a SCADA, where you can go, you can build up. This is just one example which we have, I am showing here, and if there is one fault somewhere in the plant area, in the field area, you can get an indication, click here, then it can go up to one step ahead. Out of these machines, where is the fault? Then it can, suppose there is a fault here, then click here, in this plant which distributed IO station has a problem, click that, one step ahead, which module, in the module which channel, in the channel what is that problem. So, you can go just by clicking it. This is nothing but a intuitiveness. Operator need not to ask anybody, just go on clicking it, and it can go up to the root cause, and he can just call up a maintenance guy saying that the channel is faulty, or a sensor is faulty, or a wire is disconnected. He can just get a text message. So, the downtime can be minimized the more and more you use the functionality of a SCADA. Generally, SCADA is just a package, how you use it. You can make a Word document, writing a letter, the resignation letter, or appointment letter, or whatever. It's Word, you can write it. So, it is a SCADA, you can make any application. So, more and more you make more intuitive, the user will like it, but it has got all the interfaces who can do this vertical integration. So, the network component, as I told you, can be used for horizontal integration, and the SCADA can be used for vertical integration. It will act as a middleware between the control part and the ERP part. So, this is something what our offerings is. This is what is also done here, not in a very big way. In this integrated lab, right now what we have done is we have used our PLC here, and it is talking to BNR controller on a Modbus TCB. Parallelly, it is talking to PNF sensor on Profinet, and hardwired on Festo sensor, Festo actuators. Okay, so this is something I was telling. This is a complete integrated architecture which we are proposing, where we are basically giving PLCs and SCADA here, and then this is connected over Modbus TCB. This is a servo drive and servo controller here, and then RFID sensor. This is RFID sensor which is connected over Profinet, and then Festo right now actuators. Here in this lab, the demo setup which we have done here, it is hardwired, but we have also tested on a different protocol like Profibus or something, or CAN bus or anything, that is already done in some other application. So, our aim is to show exactly what generally used in the plant, and this is a typical scenario. The servo part only for the, say example, for a robotic application, somebody will only buy a robot with its own controller, but that robot has to be in sync with the conveyor line. So, that robot signal will go to that controller, and this is the integration which people are looking for. And then what happens is, the end user has to be dependent on a controller which is supplied by the conveyor line, and a robot controller also. He has to always keep on shuffling between two suppliers, isko pakdo, isko pakdo, isko pakdo, and ultimately the integration, when it is done, it is a headache, ultimately becomes to the end user to maintain both. So, if it is on an open platform, once it is even supplied, once it is done for one application, then he is free to use that hardware freely in his premises without even depending on the OEM or a manufacturer. So, that is basically our aim, to make it more generic, so that the end user will be benefited. These are some examples which I have taken just as a discrete automation. Some automated plants for flexible manufacturing, then there is refineries and even oil extraction in petrochemical plants, wherever this factory automation or discrete automation can be used. Even in the power plants also, either it can be solar, wind, or conventional power plant on hydro or something, discrete automation is anywhere required, and this is the ultimately it is a PLC, where how you use it depends on the application to application. Ultimately it's iOS, I have to program. इसके बाद क्या करना है, इसके बाद क्या करना है. So this is as simple as that. But if you have a domain knowledge, then that counts a lot, because then you definitely know इसके बाद ये output लगाना है, तो what is the reason behind it. I'll tell you one example. When I used to do a commissioning very early stage, I used to give a on command to breaker. Now breaker for me that time it's a small breaker है, on off करो. क्या होता है, 2 बार कमांड दिया, 4 बार कमांड दिया, बट एक्चुअली दैट कमांड यूज टू गो टू अ बिग ACB or VCBs which is of 1000 ampere or something. Generally when you give a on command, because of the current rating, the coil gets very heated up and you cannot give on command immediately, otherwise it will burn out. So I was not knowing that. I used to give on command, अरे क्यों नहीं जा रहा, क्यों नहीं जा रहा, क्यों ना, and then the customer used to come to me and used to tell me, boss, why you are giving on and command always? Your PLC, my VCB is more costly than your PLC. I do not want this command again and again unless and until it is cooled down. But I was not knowing where that command is going. So this is something you require in the industry. This is something a practical knowledge. Then he used to tell, okay, 10 minutes तुमको रुकना है. Then I wrote a small logic saying that once I give on command, if there is no feedback coming, that means there is some problem. Unless and until that 10 minutes is not gone, my on command will not go again, even if I press 10 times. But that logic I have written, when I came to know there is a problem, there can be a problem if I give a multiple on time command. But this is a practical knowledge which is otherwise missing when a engineer comes from a college. So this can be simulated, this can be tested, this can be even done, and this exercise which we have also building up, these exercises are exactly the way actually it is required in the plant, though the exact hardware is not available on the mechanical side. The electrical side, the total hardware is there, but the mechanical side, unfortunately you cannot have multiple number of samples of such hardware built up in a one kit. So but the use cases are exactly in that way, and this is what exactly we are telling to within the courses also, that this is the thought behind this application, this is the thought behind this application. So again some automotive examples, some packaging, big area for factory automation, and this is thank you slide from my side. Thanks a lot. Any questions?
So Profinet and Profibus, what you told, I have also heard of some EtherCAT is there.
Yes.
Are they all subset of Ethernet which was there before, or there is some different hardware altogether?
As I told you, Ethernet is rather the protocols based on Ethernet is normally governed by IEEE 802.3, and for wireless it is 802.11. Two standards worldwide accepted. Whosoever want to really send or sell their product based on Ethernet has to be governed by that protocol. If it is not, nobody will accept. He can manufacture, but nobody will accept it. Okay, this is one point. So all Ethernet hardware has to have MAC ID, has to have RJ45 interface, has to have IP number with IPv4 or nowadays at IPv6. That has to be there. So getting that data, that is called as a up to lower layer 2 or maximum layer 4 tak, it is common. The game is changed in layer 6, 7, that is called the application part, and there all these EtherCAT, Profinet, EtherLink, they play the game, because we cannot alter, we cannot imagine that my Profinet hai, but I will give you some other interface, nobody will accept it.
So hardware is different.
So hardware is same, RJ45, it works on IP, it works on IP, it works on MAC, everything is same, but the frames, yeah. So the frames which I am sending, that frames are transferred in a different way. So I cannot even change the size of the frame, like I cannot say I will send a Profinet frame of 2100 bytes, nobody will accept, because it is not adhering to IEEE. The frame has to be 1400 something, 1472 or something, that has to be there. So where I can play around, I can play around in the same frame, saying that my data size can be little bit less, but the frame which I am sending which will have a header of say this frame is Profinet. So, the other person who accept this, he will accept just as a Ethernet frame, but the moment he say it is Profinet, if I am not understanding Profinet, I will throw this. If I am sending I am Profinet hardware, it will accept it. So, that framing is little bit different for everybody, but they follow such thing. So, your hidden question can be, if I am using a Ethernet Profinet hardware, say controller, but EtherCAT some slave or a device, whether they can just simply can connect? No, because hardware wise they are same. You are human being, I am human being, but if you are from some other, say example, you are from Tamil Nadu, I am from Maharashtra, I cannot start communicating on our own languages. I have to have a common language which both can understand. This is exactly the same. So, they follow everything, but their frames are different, and that is why in the market there are converter, we call this as a protocol changer or protocol converter, who changes the protocol from this to this or this to this, and then they can.
There is a device which uses Profibus, and I have a PC which has Ethernet only. So can I write a software which communicates through that device using my standard Ethernet card, provided I program for that protocol?
Yes or no? Answer is yes or no. Yes means if you have all the details of the card which you are using in PC as well as the Profibus details. Because Profibus interface, when you get a chip inside it. So, there is a chip who gives you Profibus interface, and then if you are able to write a code which that chip can understand, then yes, but otherwise it is difficult. You cannot get that details. You can get the chip, you can't get the details. You cannot get that because it is already designed, and as per that design the chips are available. So, you can get the chip, make your hardware compatible to Profibus, but if you want to go inside the framing of that Profibus, then you may have to go with the membership, that type of membership of Profibus organization, then you may get that details of the frame, and then you can change that frame and whatever you want to do, then you can do this. So, technically yes, it is possible, but practically it is difficult.
Nowadays we see PC based industrial control is there, and even microcontroller microprocessors are getting accepted to an instrument level. Can we eliminate these PLCs altogether with microcontroller to reduce the cost? Because industrial.
No, as I told you, there are various control. As I told you, the different types of application usages. Soft controller, microcontroller, dedicated controller, these are the various types of controller. Again, I have not listed those. I have just listed process automation, discrete automation, hot standby, and all those things, motion control. Ultimately, they are also controllers. So, this PLC is a terminology, it is not a control, it is a terminology. Under that terminology, we use same controller, you use for process automation, you use for discrete automation, you use for motion control application. So, it is basically a usage, but other than that there are various standards which are also built in those type of products. Yeah, because example, suppose I am using a basically dedicated control. This is just an example. It is very well possible because ultimately it is a controller, either a Intel controller or a Zilog controller or whatever. So, ultimately everybody understand machine code, so I can also build up. But now you are selling to one customer, and if that customer say no, I want the connection of your dedicated control to some other machine, you have to reprogram it. Otherwise, how you will understand? Or if you say now I want a safety part into it also, because my machine says some safety is required, how will you achieve it? So, those things are already done by somebody and they are selling this as a package to the user, saying that this is a general purpose PLC. Today if your application is of machine control, you use it, same controller otherwise can be used for a safety application, for your hot standby application, for your process control automation. You need not to keep on changing the variants. So, it is choice, even if you are paying little bit less or more, depends on your usage, you decide. So, it is a choice given. So, there are, say example, in our building also, normal premises, previously people used to control the tank level water tank level just by the dedicated controller. 2000 में 4000 में आता है. But those companies are very small. The person can run away anytime. You cannot catch that fellow, and that is not industrial grade prepared. So after 2 years, 1 year down the line, उसका PCB खराब होगा, soldering will go, and you will not get the spares. Then again you have to invest 2000 more to get another controller. Then otherwise people say, okay, one time I will buy a authentic controller which is there available in the market and who is serving in the market for long run. So even if this particular module fails, I can get a spare, I can get a service, I can get an upgrade, I can get the other advantage. So it,
Something
yeah.
because I work on microcontrollers. Mainly my domain is embedded system. So basically microcontrollers are dedicated controllers. As in the case of PLC, you said it's a general purpose, like you can make it function it can do one function at the same time, it can do many functions. But wherein only I require a single function to be performed at a time. So my microcontroller can be embedded into it and it will perform only. Like for example, a microwave oven. Its purpose is only to heat up. So then we don't require all these PLCs and all.
Perfect.
But it's not that controller is not reliable. You can get a controller for as less as 50 rupees. You can get in the market for as high as 2000 rupees.
Perfect.
So it mainly depends upon the application.
Exactly, that is what I was telling you.
Yes.
Because in the microwave oven, you will never see a controller of other companies. They make their own.
Back end of the PLC, you have a microprocessor.
Yeah, exactly.
only,
That is what I am taking. It is ultimately Intel, Zilog, something. Some control is ultimately that is controller ना. Siemens तो खुद करता नहीं है. या Alliance Bradley भी करता नहीं है. They only buy the chips from either they use 1 core, 2 core, 3 core, whatever. Depends on the complexity what they want to build up. But ultimately it's a controller and everything goes into the machine code. So it depends. There are n number of applications in the industry which is working on microcontroller because they are dedicated. And then you get a even the much more better response than the standard PLC. See, I have seen one application where people are measuring the thickness of a what is called as a some chemical is deposited before actually printing the plastic for say lace or something जो बनता है ना उसके. There is one lacquer, it is called as lacquer. Lacquer layer is first deposited and then there is a printing is done. So that lacquer layering is very critical because it is in tau, it is in mm. That measurement has to be properly done on the fly. That means when it is the lacquer is going on, it has to be first measured whether the layer is perfect or not. If not, that lacquer deposition has to be adjusted. It's very critical. No PLC can do that. Because PLC is designed not only for such application because their cycle time is not optimized for this. You can dedicated control can be optimized because उसको कुछ करना नहीं है, उसको सिर्फ वहाँ पे focus करना है. So you can get a microsecond response. PLC can, but PLC is not designed for that. PLC is also monitoring at the same time. It monitors its own operating system. It monitors the ports. It monitors its memory occupancy. It monitors for the diagnostic information as well as the application. So overall cycle time goes into milliseconds. So this is just an example. So there are certain applications where microcontroller is the right solution. There are certain applications where PLC is application. Depends on application to application. People have to choose whether my application suffice with this or this.
Another thing is the cost also. As I said, you can get a microcontroller for as low as 50 rupees. So suppose you have to make a unit, 1 lakh units. At that time, you will naturally think of which controller I have to use. Then microcontroller will be.
So any other questions? Otherwise, thanks.